I have had so many miracles in my life, and for people who cringe at that word, miracles are to me when the outcome is in direct contrast to what the data and expectation is supposed to be.
Totally. Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I'm your host, Shawn David Nelson, founder and CEO of Lovesac. Ditch the safety net. I am asked all the time, how do I know when to quit the day job? I got the side hustle. I got this thing. I got this idea. But I got family and um, look, I think as a general principle on life, ditch every safety net you can. And look, you don't have to listen to my advice, but it's just kind of what I believe. Burn the boats, don't look back, look forward, chase the future. In my case, I had the classic safety net in place. I was 22 years old, graduating university. I had left Lovesac. Lovesac was my side hustle through college, right? I was a waiter, waiting tables because this little company, Lovesac, never made any money. So I had that safety net. That's how I actually made my money to pay my way through school. And by the way, I don't discount that at all. I think you got to be realistic, right? Like Lovesac made no money. I couldn't see a path to making money yet. So I was a waiter. Meanwhile, I left Lovesac for almost a year to go pursue an internship through the University of Utah, speaking Chinese, doing leadership and team building courses in China, which I thought could lead me to a real job, a real career, because that was where my expertise was at. I spoke Chinese. I was studying business in school. I had this opportunity. I left, and my friends kind of kept Lovesac going for a minute while I went over and did this job. And I came back home, and sure enough, that led me to a full-time career opportunity back in Shanghai. I had to finish that last semester of school. And it was during that time that we gave Lovesac a last-ditch effort, took it to a trade show in Chicago, got discovered by the biggest retailer in the United States, wanted to order 12,000 little Lovesacs. And I had this choice to make. Like if I was going to make these 12,000 Lovesacs, I had to build a factory. I had to kind of go all in. I had to quit even waiting tables. It would have just sucked me. And I actually first rejected it. I said, I've got these jobs I got this job waiting for me over in China. I just have to finish these last couple months of school. I've got these other jobs. I'm actually flying around the country interviewing for jobs while we're building the factory to make this 12,000 sack order. Like I had not yet ditched the safety net. I had taken the 12,000 sack order. I had chosen to do it even after choosing not to do it anyway, whatever. Chosen to go through with it. And I'm still taking flights to go interview for jobs out in South Carolina. I remember I put on a suit, went out, stayed in some weird dormitory to be like the right-hand person to this Chinese CEO for this giant Chinese multinational company there in South Carolina. I'm interviewing for real jobs, even as I'm building a sack factory. And then it came down to it, and it was time to, kind of like take one of those jobs. I had these offers. I had a few different offers, or just go full time. And by the way, I didn't know that this 12,000 sack order was going to make any money. And sure enough, it didn't make any money. But I finally had to turn down this job, turn down that job, walk away from this opportunity that was a sure thing, a salary, and just make beanbags. My hands were stained blue at 23 years old that fall. By the time we stuffed all the Lovesacks for this 12,000 sack order, built a factory using farm equipment on credit cards. And I had walked away from all of those, high paying real jobs right out of college. And what have I done? And then I had to scramble because that first order, the price of foam went up, the price of shipping went up because 9/11 happened while we're in the factory making that first big Lovesac order. Didn't make any money, broke even. I'm exhausted, hands stained blue from handling 12,000 little Lovesacs. I mean, it was cool that we did this $250,000 sale, but it didn't make me any money. I'm broken down physically. I'd been working both shifts, working alongside shoulder to shoulder with the laborers in the factory, just trying to get this order out the door. And we had no customers. Had to run out, got then rejected by all the furniture stores. It was my cousin's idea. Let's open our own store. We opened the first Lovesac store that fall on a wing and a prayer. And my cousin's credit card's now maxed because my credit cards were already maxed, having built that factory. We opened the first store in that Lovesac space at the Gateway Mall in downtown Salt Lake City, November 17th of 2001. And thankfully it worked. We were on track to do $1 million in our first 12 months based on the sales just that Christmas. Who could have known? We had no idea. We took the money out of the drawer. We ran off to California to open more stores. And now, here we are 26 years later, 300 locations, public company. But I waited tables. Until the very night before we opened that factory to start making those 12,000 little sacks. And then I ditched the safety net. And I've ditched every safety net since. I've never looked over my shoulder. And there's been rocky, rough times, even through the chapter 11. I never went looking for a job. I never looked back. Burn the boats. It's still tough at Lovesac. And today in this conversation, I get into it with a Hollywood aficionado. You've seen him in The Dark Knight. You've seen him in Dune. You've seen him in all kinds of huge Hollywood movies. He's made his own movies. And we get into this idea that, look, the safety net is an illusion anyway. It's not even real. We get into how empowering it can be to leave these symbolic life rafts. Why ditching the safety net usually leads to raw honesty about yourself that can lead you to real lasting insights and a real foundation that's different than a safety net. Foundation's not a safety net, right? We all need a foundation from which to operate from. We get into that, the differences there, and why messages and messengers are so important. And you can be both at different times in your life, or sometimes simultaneously. As you listen to this conversation, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. And I think you'll find it fascinating if you're open-minded. I love this one. Here we go. Check it out. Today's guest is a man who has made a career out of taking big, bold leaps and proving that ditching the safety net can pay off in the most spectacular ways. You've seen him in such hits as The Dark Knight, Ant-Man, The Suicide Squad, Dune. He's a master at playing the unforgettable, the unusual, the unpredictable, and his journey to get here has been anything but safe. He's also a writer, producer, creator who's turned his personal challenges into award-winning storytelling, proving that when you go all in, you just might land somewhere you've never dreamed possible. From Chicago theater to the deserts of Dune, his career is a testament to taking the leap and never looking back. Please welcome the endlessly talented, relentlessly fearless, and occasionally unnerving, acting-wise, David Dastmalchian.
Thanks, man. That was awesome. I'm humbled. Thank you.
I can just roll with you and deliver that wherever you enter the room. And
I love it. I think we should do that now, especially with like my kids, because the luster has worn off. They're 8 and 11
right.
now, and like my 8-year-old sometimes thinks I'm cool still. My 11-year-old, it's harder to win over, but I got to be like, guys, because I just did a road trip with them, and on the day before we took off to go out in the desert in an RV, we had a day at like Universal. And because I've worked with Universal, we got some hookups. People were like, here's this one. And I was like, luckily I was there with some other people who kept having to like heighten the kids' awareness. Be like, you guys know this isn't like the normal way to experience the Harry Potter restaurant, right? And they're like, oh yeah, whatever, Dad. So yeah, I'm hiring you now, man, to do my intros everywhere I go.
I know, right? Our kids have no concept. I try and get them to read my book. Good luck with that. No elegant way, but that's cool, man. That's awesome that you're a family man. I love so much about what you're doing, and I think it sets you up nicely to talk about this. When you first heard of our Shawnism today, ditch the safety net. What's the first thing that came to mind without thinking too hard?
Oh, getting clean, and then thinking about the way that I proceeded with my career. There was a two things that had become major safety nets for me, and now there's a third element which we can get into today, which I think is really important as I'm now at the half a century mark in my life at 50, 23 years, and 3 months ago I got um, clean and sober, and the safety net had actually become like the poison, right? Like the safety net, the drugs, uh, and what had started as alcohol had, been such a wonderful way to anesthetize the fear feelings that had, evolved inside of me over time to manifestations of abject anxiety, depression, personality disorders, insomnia. And so drugs and alcohol were like such a salve for all that. So ditching those, I wish the verb ditch sounds like you just took your backpack off and left it on the side of the road, even though it had all your provisions in it. It's like I wish it had been as easy as that, but it was like a very active. Like my ditching of that meant like getting super glue remover on a daily basis and getting that safety net unpeeled for me. And
Hmm.
and and the other, for people who are at a place professionally maybe who might check out this podcast and go like, God, I feel so stuck in maybe a place of responsibility with work or an obligation to a system that feels like this is the way, because we're told since we're little kids, this is the way being a valuable member of society works. This is the way your value is amassed. This is what it means to be a person. This is where you gain your sense of self as a human being. This is what marriage is supposed to look like. This is what parenting is supposed to. There's all these. This is what work is supposed to look like. As actors and people in the creative field and entertainment, you're told from the get-go, like these are the things that you can't exist without. One of which was representation in the form of agent, manager, et cetera. And I hit a point in 2016 when the relationships that I had um, for all involved just weren't really working. And so I was
Hmm.
looking to make a switch and ended up just going out on my own for the better part of 5 years as an actor in Hollywood with no formal representation. That was pretty scary as a safety net, to know
Hmm.
who's who. I just was talking to um, Leah Kilpatrick this morning because we're working on a bunch of projects together, and I said, you're never we're never going to get elected without a killer campaign manager, and we have to be our own campaign managers in this in this crazy industry of ours. And so that's another example. And then the third one was my safety net had, after I got clean, I kind of did the work for a number of years and then kind of phased out of the work because I felt like I had like gotten saved, clean,
Yeah.
cured.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers to the onion, dude.
Hmm.
So many layers. So what slowly started to take hold, and I never even saw it coming, was how much compulsive control, workaholism, codependency had started to become the safety net that. And by the way, the term safety net is such a great term because I think it's all an illusion anyway. Is it's like a misnomer, right? Often I find that the safety nets I've chosen are really just defaults, and they don't actually keep me safe. They create an illusion of safety, which keeps me from achieving the kind of consciousness or personhood that I think I am capable of being. So that was a big old mouthful, but I've been thinking about it since I got that email from you guys. I was like, there's a professional example, a mental health example, and then a personal example. And by the way, all three of those to me are intimately and intrinsically interconnected.
Sure. I think everything is, I mean, we're kidding ourselves if we think that our professional life is not connected to our personal life, is not connected to our spirituality or whatever, all of these things are connected. And I love that you've given us three good examples. I want to dig in on all three. So for anyone listening that's not familiar, you've been very open about your uh, experience with drugs, with addiction, your movie Animals. I'll just plug it because I don't know why I'm fascinated with, I don't even know if it's a genre, but I first saw Where the Day Takes You long, long ago when it first came out, and it like stuck with me. And I it's not the same movie at all, but I think Animals, made me feel similar. And I don't know, maybe it's the Mormon in me. I was raised Mormon, like, you're right. We don't even drink. And so perhaps that's my fascination. I don't know. Who knows? But the safety net that is uh, dependence, let's call it, that's a really interesting that's a really interesting thing to dig in on, because it doesn't have to be drugs, right?
Exactly. And in the film Animals, for anyone that gets a chance to check it out, just to know that's a movie that at the beginning of my career, it's the first screenplay I ever wrote. And I spent years writing and rewriting and working on it. And I was doing a series of television commercials with a really acclaimed independent filmmaker named Chris Smith. And Chris read the script for me, and his response to it was so overwhelmingly positive that that was like the first nudge of, and he said the quote from Field of Dreams, which was, because I was like, how do you make something like this? He was like, you build it, they'll come, build it, they'll come. So I just kept putting together this film piece by piece, raising the financing, found a really great hands-on producer who believed in the script and she wanted to see it made. And then we pushed through. But what was interesting in going through the film, yes, it's a movie about two people who are addicted to opiates, and they're living in a car, and they're hustling, stealing every day, using all their incredible skills and mental acuity to just stay high.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to tell a story about that was the heroin was just what I knew. Being someone who lived in a car was a world that I knew. So narratively, that was something dramatically that I could tell a story through a lens that I actually knew and understood. But I did want to tell a story about that kind of relationship which we've all been in. And it's really hard if you're like me, for someone who's raised with the belief system that, like, I made a vow and a promise to be with this person for the rest of my life, and that is like a sacred deal. But what if you get into a scenario where you suddenly realize, like, oh my God, we have two paths forward. One, we're going to weather this storm, and then when we're 90 years old, sit on a porch and be like, remember when we made it through that time? Or when do you need to break the safety net? Get in your life raft, get off of that ship, leave that relationship, which is, for me, a child of divorce, someone who was raised with a lot of like pretty heavy dogma around, like, you made a promise, you made a vow, you can't get out of that. And when I went into writing that film, I had to um, extricate myself from a a marriage that, like, I was like, holy crap. And there's nobody, even, it's really hard, even if you're really, really in touch with your, consciousness and your spiritual connection to God or whatever it is that you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get that answer. Who's gonna come in? Because you've got your friends that'll say, get out of there. You've got your family that'll say you should stay in. You've got your, whatever, and you have to. And so this film, you see these two people, Jude and Bobby, love each other so much. They really do. But it's like Jude holding Bobby back from being clean. I don't know. And I wanted to make that, and we did it. And it was the best feeling, dude, to make a movie outside of the system with a bunch of talented actors in Chicago, the place where I started. and just running and gunning, shooting on on the run, making it like as professionally as we could, but sometimes it's like, oh, we just got to do these things.
Yeah.
And then the film got accepted to a prestigious film festival. It got distributed by a prestigious distribution company. I mean, it's a miracle. I have had so many miracles in my life, and for people who cringe at that word, miracles are to me when the outcome is in direct contrast to what the data and expectation is supposed to be.
Totally.
So for me, being clean and sober is a miracle. Does that mean that I floated and levitated and some power like, you know, shot me with? No, it means I showed up to the miraculous rooms that have been created over generations of people accruing knowledge and wisdom and sharing from their hearts how to help you get there. That is a miracle to me, you know? And this film getting to the fact that you know this movie, the fact that people will still come up to me and go, well, that we made it for less than $200,000. And for that's a lot of money. Trust me, I believe that that is in this day and age an entire like high-end education for somebody, but like that
I mean, in the context
in
of Dune,
film,
it's
in the
not
context of
exactly a
film, it's not that's not even 2 minutes of an episode of a TV show.
yeah,
So
that's amazing. Well, and I think listen, as a fan, I am a fan of independent film. In fact, I almost can't, all respect. I mean, look, if it's Christopher Nolan, all right, but like all respect to so much of what's out there now. I almost don't even want to go if it's not like, and it's hard to find. It's getting thinner and thinner, I feel like.
yeah, I
But
agree.
you know, back to miracles. I mean, the title of my book, if you get it, you know, well, you're getting one. Let me save you 25 years. Mistakes, miracles, and lessons from the Love Sack story. And this is the point of this whole podcast. This is what's beautiful. I can have an actor on. I can have, you know, one of the biggest names in business entrepreneurship on this podcast. Everything in between. We all learn kind of the same lessons if we're paying attention. You know, if you're going to be a successful person, you know, you talked about success and how it's defined and how odd it is when you're able to have success outside of the playbook, which is often the case. In fact, the greatest successes, however you want to hear that word, I believe, are all outside of the typical playbook to some degree. You're one of them. And we are forced through like a funnel that will cause us to learn many of the same things, including a reverence for the miraculous and for the luck it requires to have success. And that's been my experience, and it's cool to hear that reflected back through a completely different genre, such as your own.
I yeah, I mean 23 years and a few months of being free of the bondage of addiction. I've had so many close scrapes, man. I've had so many times where I came right up to the
Mm,
fire,
I can't
like, you
imagine,
know,
especially
it,
living in Hollywood. You know,
that, but also just being an individual who all of our brains are such beautiful, complicated assholes. Like they just are such gifts and such curses at the same time. The analytical brain combined with an emotional well of life that is shaped by uh, stuff that still influences us from, say, when we're 8 years old. Some of the biggest imprints, some of the biggest like dinosaur footprints, I think, inside of the way we navigate this world, if if we're not careful, are just literally all the machinations that became our defaults of ways of avoiding feeling how scared we felt when we were at the beginnings of our journey. And that's really hard to reroute. They talk about rerouting neural pathways and the years of discipline, for lack of a better term. If you're going to change the course of a stream, that's infinite. And And I think going back to like recovery and 12 steps, like the third step, which is we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God, which turns a lot of people off when they first get in the rooms because they're like, well, I don't believe in God. And it's like that if you read the words as we understood God. So some people can go, like for me, it was really helpful because I came from a place of having a lot of resentment towards an idea of God. And like I was raised with a very intensely punishing, you know, God. And so that was
Hmm.
scary for me. I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
abandonment anxiety around a concept of a creator when I was a kid. And then I go, oh, like I was saying earlier, you enter a space, whether it's a 12-step meeting, whether it's a group of friends, whether it's a spiritual retreat, whether it's just some creative partnerships and people who are willing to meet you where you're at, love you, accept you, uh, share their experience, strength, and hope so that you can grow from that and learn. That to me is the face of that's how I experience the divine most of the time.
That's awesome. Well, I think that yeah, it's interesting as you provoke that, and I try and even tie it back to our topic, ditch the safety net. You know, it's one of the reasons, if I'm being really honest, I perceive. So I'm a religious person, and in fact, you know, depending on who you ask, in a fairly controversial, involved in a fairly controversial religion, you know, Mormonism, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Day Saints, and different people have different takes on that. But you know, it's how I was raised. It's and but beyond that, I've had a lot of my own experience that has me firmly in the faith. And sometimes in this day and age, it's criticized, not just our religion, but I think religion in general, as this sort of crutch, as this sort of like, well, you know, I'm not too concerned about uh, the world going this way or that way because Jesus Christ is going to come again and it's all going to burn and it's all going to be saved and it's all going to, you know, and so it's like, don't worry about it. And at the same time, there's so much power. And even though I wouldn't ever be as flippant as what I just described, right? There's so much power in that. There's so much power in faith and understanding that like there's a bigger narrative at place and all of these things that I can't understand and that look completely insurmountable and terrible, um, it'll work out just fine. And I can go back to, you know, being hopefully a good dad and a good parent, a good spouse, a good partner, and not lose my mind over all the stuff that I can't control.
That's it. I mean, that's the trick. That is the hugest. And for me, as somebody that struggled with compulsive control, dependency, codependency, attempting to control even my children or a partner
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or like a life partner or a creative partner or the world around me. I came to believe, that I am powerless, not only over drugs and alcohol, but over others, including my own progeny. Like it's wild, man, and acceptance that if you can reach that a place of peace, whatever practice helps you get there, even though we may look at like the path that takes us to that place completely differently. You, a devout Buddhist, someone who practices Hinduism, someone who practices, I don't know what, we all meet in that space of acceptance that we really don't know. None of us actually really knows. And we all, if I'm trying to control you, the narrative, the world outside of me, my career, even that I can go, I turn it over to, and by the way, just to say, this fear that I had of God, this judging God, that now I have this relationship that is at 50 years old, a brand new relationship with a loving, accepting God concept of God and higher power. It's game changer, bro. Game changer.
Absolutely.
And I want so
Well,
badly for people to know that that's possible because I understand why so many people walk around with such a huge chip. I had it. I
yeah.
get it. Especially if you're a marginalized group who the church has harmed. If you're queer, if you're trans, if you're this, if you're
Yeah.
that, and people have said you don't belong, you're this, there's something wrong. No, nobody knows, bro. You're loved. You are loved. You belong here. We all do together. The point, what is the point of me telling you the way that you connect is wrong? It's just, it's what a waste, man.
I think you're absolutely right. I think sadly, religions, um, dogma of any kind can be abused and twisted to the point where certain things are highlighted or focused on that may even have some sliver of truth to them. But truth, first of all, I'm a believer in truth. I'm not a believer that, everything is true or, everything it can be accepted. I'm a believer that there is truth. And I think part of the reason that I believe, I'm just being honest about how I feel, the reason you feel so freed by what you just said, right? That by the concept of a loving God is because that truth is far greater and more fundamental than a judging God, as an
It's
example.
ultimate truth too, though. And I
Yeah.
hate being, I don't believe it's useful for me to enter the conversation, and I mean the big conversation, being
Yeah.
like, I know I'm right about something and that's wrong, but I just want to posit it out there. So anybody who's listening, and obviously I know you and I are connecting over this, and it's a great feeling. How great does it feel to meet a complete stranger from 1,000 miles away, and you can
Right.
connect over this? Um, but I want to even let people play with that idea. If that's something that's keeping you away from being open to the possibility that there is a power greater than yourself that truly does love you, take it from this weirdo character actor who has had some great luck both in sobriety and in success in career, and has had a lot of struggles and still sucks at a lot of things and messes up every day. You're loved, belong, and each one of us is deserving of that serenity and that peace and that ability to be kind of the parents to ourselves in many ways that, to me, the divine is leaning in towards. Like that voice, like I was saying earlier, my brain is such an asshole. I was in the shower this morning with so many weirdo twisted thoughts about like resentment at this person, and thinking about like, I suck at this thing. So then I caught it, and I had a what I call like a holy pause. Like, I took a breath, just standing in the shower trying to shave. It's like, you're gonna get to go have this conversation in a little bit, and what an opportunity to just connect and listen and learn something. You're gonna get to look at a bunch of art today from somebody who's inspired by something you wrote. What a great thing. You're doing a good job, man. You're waking up, you're hitting your knees, you're getting a meeting, you're still making a lot of mistakes, but like the way we talk to ourselves internally, that's, I call that a spiritual experience. It's when I have a
For sure.
revolutionarily different reaction to people's places and things than I used to. That is incredible.
Well, and I think that again, um, it's a fundamental truth and it can take many forms. Like what you're describing, I think can be achieved through, like you said, a holy pause, some kind of practice.
It's the
In
best.
my case, I talk about it a lot on this podcast. I have a morning mantra. I have things I say to myself. I also pray, and I think it's the right way to pray. I think prayer can be confused as this, I don't know, ritual or thing that religious people do. But I think at its core, it's meant to be so much more than like words said or whatever. It's meant to be all the things that meditation, all the things that affirmations, all the things that manifestations have become in the pop culture world of self-help and personal development are actually more rudimentarily found in the ancient practice of prayer. And so look, come at it however you want. It all leads back to the like you said, the core truth. that if we allow some of these big truths to have a stake in our lives, and in fact, what's ironic about what we're talking about, I think, is again, I think, I don't know, beliefs, religion, God, any of it can be looked at as the safety net. So here we are talking about ditching the safety net, yet I'm advocating
Dude,
like
it's a paradox. It's a paradox. I was raised
it's a paradox.
in a reality with someone I love so much, and I know she loved me so much. And the dogmatic kind of pervasive thought process was like, we prayer without action is empty. And it used to really frustrate me because there would be things
Hmm.
that put me as a kid into like an unsafe reality, or
Hmm.
things that um the tools that can be provided when it comes to like taking the active participation in your life, because I don't believe that the divine calls on any of us to take a passive participation and sit on the couch waiting. It was this and it was a safety net. And that was someone who raised me, who I know was deeply wounded in many ways as a child, and so I had a lot of empathy for that. But it was like, uh you know, I really want to go on the school trip that all the other kids get to go to, but we can't afford it. Well, we're just going to pray about it. And I'd be like,
Hmm.
yeah, but like, could we pick up some extra hours? Could I, you know, I was like, so I went my ass down to the bakery and got a job, and went to the nursing home and got an after school job and saved up. And, you know, there was a, there's this balance between the active participation, being of service, or if you can, I'm trying to work on that a lot in my life. Like, I ask so much of others. It's like, where am I of service right now? How do I
I love that.
participate actively? Um, so I hear you. The safety net. It just drove me crazy because I was like, we could. I was. I'll share something deeply personal with you that I haven't really talked about very much publicly. But
Please.
age 10, um, the the very unhealthy, marriage that my parents had, which needed to end much sooner than it did, and finally was ending because we were in a very mentally, psychologically like unsafe situation on a regular basis. Um, Combined with what for me began as something that has been a lifelong struggle with uh, mental unwellness that has manifest, since pretty young age, with like attachment disorder and borderline tendencies and anxiety, depression, insomnia. I was um, severely uh, close to taking my own life. And what was preventing me from it was that that it was this immortal sin that, and then I reached a point where I was like, well, you know, the fact that you'll even throw people in a pit of fire forever, God, means to me, you're an asshole. I don't care anymore. I'm going to kill myself. Because to me, why would I make a kid and tell them, if you don't do things the way I say, then you're going to burn forever? That to me is
Hmm.
just, we're screwed from the beginning. So I was going to kill myself.
Wow.
At age 10, wrote a, 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 a letter and got in trouble at school for it because they didn't think it was real. It was obviously like a deep cry, looking back now, for help. And this is in the 80s, when we weren't at the place we are societally in our awareness of mental wellness and therapy and
Yeah.
everything. But, instead of getting the combined support, which I think, if say something like that happened and now in my life was a young person or even a grown person that I know, I would hope and pray that I could help support them find both the spiritual but also the like clinical support that they may need. But I was just taken to a religious person who told me that the big question that seemed to really be their curiosity was like, are you having impure thoughts? What are
Hmm.
you thinking about? Because you're going through puberty now, and like, what are you thinking about? And I felt safe uh confiding that, and then was, told, well, you know that's why you're depressed, that's why you want to kill yourself, so you have to stop having impure thoughts, and if you can do that, then you will and you'll be okay.
Wow.
And so is it even does it even do you even wonder why that following summer when I first got my hands on beer, I couldn't stop? You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and and now at this age where I'm at, I'm like, it's such a important balance between for me. Uh, it just comes as such a loaded word. You get it. I mean, you're a Mormon. You understand. You say that word, and people go, "Well, I already have a big opinion." When I say spirituality or a faith,
Yeah.
a higher power, people immediately
Right.
they just, and I'm like, no, it's frustrating. So I'm glad conversation
Yeah.
can happen, and hopefully somebody will listen to you or to us today who goes like, all that shit's bullshit, and it's like it's not. It's real.
Well, the context in which I think this is a valuable leverage point for the topic of today, actually. And I think you've already sussed this out. It's one thing. It's so interesting to me that here you are telling me this deeply personal story that occurred very early on in your life, and you kind of connected it through to the thread that led you to addiction and to that ultimate safety net that you ultimately had to ditch. Yet on the other end of it, once again, is God. So God's on both ends of this in your life, as you've shared, on both ends of this journey. But I believe the key then becomes, um, and I'm going to try to, articulate this if I can. It's like what you said about prayer. It's one thing to say prayers and hope that we can afford to, like, do this thing. It's another thing to say prayers and, by the way, go out and pick up some extra hours and maybe earn a little bit of money so we can go afford this thing. And when we're using anything, God, prayer, religion, drugs, as a safety net, it becomes debilitating to us. But instead, if we're able to, somehow put into context our beliefs, whatever they are, and use them as a foundation to give us the strength to then go do things, to then go act rather than be acted upon, um, we can finally begin to achieve. And I think that that's the power of ditching the safety net. In my life, I before we got on together, I shared a story about where where I had to make that classic leap. As an entrepreneur, I get asked all the time, like, "Hey, man, when do I know it's time to like quit the day job and like, go go whole hog into this thing that in my side hustle?" And there's no right answer to that question. But generally, I advocate the idea of ditching the safety net. And for the longest time in my life, like, look, I'm still running the company I started in my teens. I'm pushing 50. We're a public company listed on NASDAQ. A lot of my friends are under their fourth companies, and here I am still running. But look, I'm proud of everything that it's become. But even to this day, pretty much all my wealth, all my hope for a future for my family is tied up in the singular stock of this company because I try to live what I preach and I try to ditch the safety net. And I'm not trying to give financial advice. This is not sound financial advice. Like, you should diversify, you should do all the things your financial advisor tells you. But like, if I'm asking people to join my company and take a risk on this thing, take your career that you've built for 30 years, 20 years, whatever, and bring it here. And here's some stock in Lovesac to, that will be the bulk of your compensation. Shouldn't I be the same? Why should my chips be off the table? And my point is, we are so much more powerful. I believe that you can have faith in God. You can have faith in a lot of things, and you can still choose, even with God, to not rely on those things as a safety net and instead uh, embrace the adventure that is life, that is your career. I love your example making that movie. Like, you didn't know how it was going to end. You didn't even know if you'd be able to get past first base. But guess what? Animals got made. And it's a deeply personal story that I promise you, if you've done nothing other than affect someone that you'll never meet and probably never even hear about through that movie, I don't know that you could do anything more valuable on earth. But like, so a $200,000 budget movie up against, you've been in some of the biggest budget movies ever made. You've been a piece of those. I don't know which is more valuable, but I promise you that there's tremendous value in the things that we do when we choose to ditch the safety net and go for it, even if we don't know, even if it doesn't come in the form. I don't know if animals made you tons of money. It probably didn't. You probably made a lot more money doing other things. Zero, okay, but
I've
like,
never seen like a any I've never received a check for that movie in the time since it was released. But the people who invested in the film, I believe, were able to at least get, because it was small, from 5,000 investment units to 50,000 investment units. Like, the people who did, I believe, were able to get their money back and feel like they were a part of something really valuable. And I'll tell you really quick, just slide this in there. The movie premieres at South by Southwest Film Festival, wherein I then get to connect with um, Sarah Haley Finn, head of casting for Disney's Marvel Studios at that time, who falls in love with my work, because I'm here promoting my independent film, who then introduces me to the director of this big Marvel movie that's going to be getting made, who then brings me in to then become a part of what became my first multi-picture deal. I'm not saying that as, like you said, I'm not here giving financial advice or business advice, but it's like that little train, that little thing that we made, it just kept opening the doors to Denis Villeneuve, who had already cast me in Prisoners before we did Animals, but he watched the film, and I think he saw a whole other side of me as an artist and continued to want to work with me. And I can't help but wonder if some of that was his admiration for this little tiny thing that I did.
yeah,
And
which
and
took,
mm, this is such a great conversation, but one thing when I was listening to you, I was like, messages and messengers are so important.
hmm,
Who's hearing your message, and you as a messenger, there is a responsibility in that. That's, I don't want to keep making this thing about spirituality and God and religion, but like, oh man, it's so important when you think about that little boy who needed help, and the message and the messenger that he intersected with, thankfully, didn't cost me my life. Imagine, as the messenger, you're a messenger right now to all the people who are looking to what you've done with your company, with your life, with your podcast, with your journey. Like, there's a responsibility in that. And that's
yeah,
okay. I screw up. I'm sure I've said many stupid things that I look back and, oh God, why did I say that? But being cognizant of that is part of what you're doing in service. And it's nice. I don't see you're not out here like telling people this is what you gotta do. This is how, that's not what you're saying at all, man.
that's the spirit of this podcast. Look, these conversations, they go where they go. And that's part of ditching the safety net. Like, I could be afraid of exposing my personal beliefs. And, I have employees that could hear this and, I don't know, not like me because of what I believe or what I allow to be said or what I say. But at the same time, like, I would be a hypocrite if I lived that way. Like, we're either going to ditch the safety net and be honest in as much as we can, or not. But I believe that's why I think I love films so much. I love films like Animals so much, is because they're honest. At the end of the day, people still are attracted to honesty, I believe. And it's harder and harder to find because we obviously increasingly can see we live in a world where almost nothing is honest anymore. And that's what I love about, yeah, and so again, I mean, it's easy to get excited over all the big movies you've done and big roles that you've played. And I don't mean to diminish that at all. I just have so much admiration when when people can tell an honest story. And it's sad to me that, like you said, it made you $0. On the other hand, to your point, you can see the connection of where it's
Oh,
led you in your life and what it's brought to you. And more importantly, what it's brought to others. And the best part is, bro, you will never even know. Like you've heard, I'm sure, some people that have told you things. Like my friend Mike Malak wrote the book, The Fifth Vital, which you're probably aware of, about addiction. And, I've gotten hit up because he mentions me in his book because I was the first to hire him. I didn't even know this. I hired him right after rehab, and he's gone on to become a multimillionaire influencer, wrote this book, influenced a lot of people. I hear about it because people DM me and say, "Hey man, like, just after they read the book, like, love what you did for me." My point is, you'll never even know who you've touched or what you've done for something that made you $0 commercially, cost you money probably. But again, even the direct thread of how you've tied it through to the other places it's led you, can, I think, show to anyone listening the power of following your instinct, doing the unsafe thing, going for it, that can bless both your own life in ways that have come to follow as you've articulated, as well as others, in ways that you may never even hear of, but you can certainly know is a fact.
100%, 100,000%. And that safety net, um, that is in my daily life now. Two things I want to say. One,
Yeah, please.
um, I realized how much I made other people a safety net for me. And I made others, you know, say it's a wife, a partner, um, even your own kids, my source of support and safety. The mantra is that I can be my own source of safety and support. It's a big mantra. And by saying myself, it's not really myself. It's through, you know, going to my meetings every day and finding the care and love that I can in others, just not putting that on a person or on a couple of people or on my family. Because what it was doing is it was over time, the more my bubble expands, the more my energetic bubble has been expanding, my career is expanding, the more I was having to be in 4,000 places at once. The money was changing, everything is changing. People, my exposure to the world was changing. Keeping that like my unit where I need them to be when I need them to be there. Why aren't we here? Why it started to become its own. And it was ugly, man. And I did and said things and behaved in ways that were completely out of the space of the individual that I know I have the capacity to be. I have no, it gives me no good feelings to say that I have absolutely yelled and even screamed at times when people that I love the most weren't doing things the way that I wanted them to do them. And in saying that again, I hope somebody hears that who's carrying around a lot of shame and guilt. And I go, the time to change is now, man. I dug
Mm.
in and I started to practice and adapt and adopt the power of the holy pause. And I tell you, this last week, being in a 120-degree desert in an RV with two kids who I love so much, when they would do something that was out of school or pissed me off, that I could find that holy pause, that I could see the path to going, guys, if we can just wait 5 minutes, I promise we're going to be able to talk about this in a way that's more like uh, productive. And if we can't do it in 5 minutes, in 5 hours, I promise we're going to be able to talk about this and we're going to feel better. And if the 5 hours doesn't work, I swear on everything that's holy, in 5 days, you won't even remember why you're so mad at each other or me or whatever right now. That of all the animals, the dunes, the suicide squads, you know, you name it, that's like one of the proudest like things that I have to feel about myself. And I'm
That's
not that I'm
awesome.
not incredibly proud of every book, comic, movie thing that I've been able to achieve as an artist. But like it makes all that other stuff to start to feel like I can be more present in it. And that's really because I want everybody who's listening to have their highest state of consciousness and achieving their dreams, being there. But I also want you to be present for it. I want you to be able to like sit the way you're sitting with just a smile and like surrounded by so much that has already happened, so much that is yet to come. But here, right now, on, the 11th of August at 11:32 Pacific, just like
Yeah,
I'm here, I'm not future tripping.
I agree. I'll repeat a line that was shared on this podcast a few episodes ago that stuck with me since. Being present is more important than being confident. And being present is yet another skill that requires you ditching the safety net, whatever safety net of being busy or being preoccupied or making sure that we're putting in the time that we think it takes letting go to be present. And that's a form of ditching that safety net. And it's so amazing to me in this conversation how we started with drugs. We talked about career, the job as a safety net, ditching those safety nets, even God and family as safety nets. It's not to say, of course, we want to ditch God or family or even our careers, but instead, I think allowing those things to be what they should be and not become a safety net, and instead live in the moment, live present, uh, put ourselves out there, keeping these wonderful things in our lives, keeping our careers, keeping people that matter, keeping God in our life, keeping family as family. And in fact, the top priority, I love that you've gone there, and not even making those sacred things our safety net. Ditch the safety net,
Ditch it.
go live, be present. And what's amazing, as you've proven, you'll have wild success. If you're able to somehow do that. And I think that look, we're all on this journey. We all go up and down in our ability to, I don't know, manage ourselves well. But I had no idea where this conversation would go. But what a blessing to have you be so vulnerable. Is there any, before we break off in the spirit of the title of this podcast, let me save you 25 years. Any advice you'd give to someone out there to help them save a chunk off
I
their
love
own?
it. I love it when like young actors are like, "How did you do it? What did you do?" It's like, "Oh man, this is so like tropey and it's such a cliche, but it's like if you love doing the thing that you love to do, then do the thing that you love to do, no matter what it takes for you to be able to do that thing." And that means for many artists and actors, finding a good, steady uh, job that can help you pay the bills while you invest that extra time that most people would get to go to sports events or go to music events or do those other things. You invest that time in doing community theater. If you really love being an actor, then act. There's always opportunities wherever you
Yeah.
live. I don't care if you're in a small town, your local community center has plays that are happening, your local church, your local wherever. If that's you, if you want to be famous, if you want to be a movie star, that's a totally different thing. Then I don't
Yeah.
know how to do that. I genuinely don't. But the advice I would give is do the thing that you love to do. And please, please seek out exactly what was happening in this conversation today, which is, finding that journey for yourself, mental wellness and self-care and love for yourself, because there's nothing without that. There's nothing without that. And if you're feeling alone right now, if you feel like harming yourself, if you feel like you just can't make it without a drink or a drug today, there's free research. You don't need to have wealth. You don't need to have, money. There are free resources out there waiting for you right now. And just in case you want to share it, there's a good hub that the government provides, SAMHSA, SAMSHA, but I'm sure you have many that you share with people too. But like, yeah, that's it. That's it. I guess I can keep going. That's it though. I'll stop there.
I love it. I
Throw
love
away
it.
those safety nets, baby.
That's right. Go for it. Um, Listen, you can follow David on Instagram as I do at Dastmalchian. That's Dastmalchian
There it is. Half the
on
alphabet. You nailed it.
Instagram. He's currently starring on Apple TV's sci-fi series Murderbot, and
Yes.
he's playing a killer dual role.
Yes.
in the latest season of Dexter, of course,
Yes.
which is like a must. It's like if you I don't know if you're not if you haven't tracked Dexter, I don't know what you're watching. Be sure to pre-order a copy of his brand new graphic novel Through. You can pre-order that wherever books are sold. And you can also order David's new trade paperback, Knights versus Samurai, Volume 1, which will be available October 1st. To the demented devotee in the Dark Knight, the mysterious Mentat and Dune, the performer who actually made polka dots cool, that's, Suicide Squad, David Dastmalchian.
This is great, dude. I love
Heck yeah.
this space. Thanks for creating it. It's awesome.
And remember this, sometimes the best thing that you can do is light the bridge behind you on fire. Stare at the flames and say, well, guess I better make this work. Because when there's no way back, the only way is forward. That just may save you a chunk off your own 25-year journey. Thank you.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.